Well, you want me to play for eh? You want to play for you? Yeah.
My name is John Bradbury. I was licensee of the grouse on Brampton from 1981 to 91, and then for the peacock on Chatsworth Road from 2002 to 2009. It was an iconic place for people to do I think it was a challenge more than anything. People used to take it on as a challenge to do initially 20 odd pubs, now down to probably about 11, which takes about an hour. It used to take about 5 hours or 6 hours sometimes to do. But it brought a lot of trade into Chatsworth Road. People used to come from miles around just to say they've done the Brampton Mile, and it was a bit of a nuisance sometimes. You can imagine people thought they could drink forever, and they can't. It used to come back. It used to come back, and somebody had to clean it up. We keep the old mop and bucket by the door, just in case. That was down at the grouse. Peacock wasn't too bad because it was only in those days second pub down. It used to be a lot better. But it died away. I don't know whether people still do it. No, I haven't got a clue. But it did die away whilst I was in the Peacock. Very, very few people did it then. But it's still there. If people want to have a go at it.
I wasn't really aware that there was a Brampton Mile for a long time. I suppose until I was at secondary school, and I used to go to school at Newbold Green, so I used to have to catch a bus into town and then catch a bus from town up Brampton, and obviously I'd see all the pubs. So yeah, I suppose I became aware of it as a thing when I was about 16, and I started getting interested in going out with boys. And so we'd obviously, boyfriend would want to go in pubs, and I would have to drink Coke because all the landlords knew who I was. So yeah, it was. I didn't realise how popular it was until I was a bit older. But yeah, the Brampton Mile, as I remember it, started at the terminus at the top of Chatsworth Road, and it went down to the Masons at West Bars. Now, some people said it went on to the Sun Inn further along West Bars, and some people said no, that's not Brampton, that's West Bars. So there was always a bit of like, where does the Brampton Mile actually end? I think obviously in the 80s, when we saw Robinson's start to diminish, the pits closed, Britain was thrown into this manufacturing disaster where, you know, companies were closing, and I think Brampton in general went through a bit of a slump.
I think it's because there's no the lack of pubs. It's not a challenge. It doesn't seem to be so much of a challenge, thanks to pub companies, price of beer. I think mainly pub companies have closed the pubs. It's not. It's not a challenge, because back in the day, in the 20s and 30s, when there were 26 pubs, it was horrendous of that. But it was horrendous. But when I think there was about 20 When I went in the grouse, I think there was still about 20 pubs, 20 odd pubs. So I think there's about 11. It's a national trend. How many pubs close every week in the country? 20 odd a week. So there's more pubs boarded up these days than there are open, seems to be.
In the 60s, 70s, and certainly the early part of the 80s, there was a lot of industry in and around Chesterfield. One of the biggest ones was Robinson's. A lot of working class families lived around Brampton. A lot of the men either worked in factories or down the pit. And there are only two main pits really, Bolsover and Staveley, I think, or Markham. And I think the Brampton Mile then was a centre. People who lived in the community, that's where they met up. The working class tradition of the 60s and 70s, you know, the men would go out to work, the women would stay at home or they'd work in the factories, and then in the evening out to the pub, just for a few pints, because the pubs used to shut at 10:30. 11 o'clock on Fridays and Saturdays.
Yeah, quite a wide variety, but it was a very locals pub. When I say locals, not that people particularly lived locally, but they used to class it locally. You used to be able to tell. They used to come in at the same time every night, and it was the time when people used to go out 7 nights a week, which doesn't happen so much now. There's very few people go out every day. And it tended to be night time. People's drinking habits changed when the hours changed, when the licensing hours changed from 11 till 3 and 5:30 till 10:30 originally.
When you got to the weekend, Fridays and especially Saturday nights were, you know, that's when you came out as a couple. So, you know, that's when mum and dad would come out, and sometimes they'd bring the kids with them. At the Three Horseshoes, we had a room at the back with fruit machines and a pinball machine, and kids could sit in there, and I used to sit there nearly every weekend in this room with friends. So I think obviously beer was affordable. People didn't have a lot of entertainment in those days. We only had 3 channels, so there wasn't a lot on telly.
Things have changed, unfortunately. So not for the better, in my opinion. I think it used to be a good community. Everybody looked after everybody else. If somebody wanted, used to have the grouse. We used to have customers that used to, if they weren't coming in, used to ring up and say, "We won't be in tonight," because they knew that if they didn't, somebody would be going knocking on the door saying, "They're all right." It was that they were, and the Peacock tended to be very much the same. It was a community family type pub. Not. It was. They were nice people, and a lot of the customers in Peacock were the same customers I had in the Grouse. They drifted away because there was a 10-year gap. But they still came to roost, fortunately.
Brampton wasn't then a very desirable place to live. It was a bit of a dump. So that affected the pubs, obviously. People couldn't afford to go out to the pubs. So I think what we're seeing now is a return, because I think Brampton's now becoming a desirable place to live. The house prices in Brampton are quite high compared to some areas of Chesterfield. It's got good schools, you know, and all the businesses that are opening along Chatsworth Road. It's a bit like a seafront, you know, there's restaurants, there's coffee shops, and some really, really nice places to go and eat, you know. So I think what we're seeing in Brampton now is a bit of a return to the good old days, but different. It's not the same, it's different, but it's, you know, it's getting better, I think.